Okay, fifth graders, tonight's homework has zeros again in the quotient, but this time they're going to be three-digit numbers. Here we go. So we're going to start, I like to cover this up, part of it, so I don't get confused. 3 goes into 2, it doesn't. Some kids write a 0 here, some don't. Here we go, we're going to look at it as 24. And I know 8 times 3 is 24. And I'm going to subtract and I get a 0. And then I check, is my 0 smaller than my divisor? Or is my remainder smaller than my divisor? Yep. So then I bring down the next one. This time I've got a 2. How many times does 3 go into 2? Well, it can't. It's too small. So I need to write a 0. And then I can bring down my next digit. Now I've got 28. And I know, let's see, 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 9 is 27. That's probably the closest I can get, is 3 times 9 at 27. I can subtract and I get a remainder of 1. And we're going to express it as a fraction, so we'll take 1 and we're going to put it over the divisor 3. So 803 and 1/3 for that one. Next, moving over, I've got 6 into 1. It won't go, so I need to move over. 6 into 18, I know that fact. 6 times 3 is 18. I can subtract and I get a 0. I'm going to move this over and bring down my next digit, a 3. 6 can't go into 3, there's not enough, so I need a 0 here. And then I'm going to bring down my next digit, a 4. And now I'm thinking of my 6 facts. I know 6 times 5 is 30, 6 times 6 is 36, that's too big, so it must be a 5. 6 times 5 is 30. I subtract and I get a remainder of 4. My remainder is smaller than my divisor, so I can bring down my next digit. Oops, I'm out of digits, so that means I'm all done. So 305 and 4 over 6. I want 6 as my denominator because that's my divisor over there. Alright, moving over this way. 2 can't go into 1, it's too small, but 2 can go into 15. And I'm thinking 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 6 is 12, 2 times 7 is 14. That's probably as big as I can get without going over. Subtract and I get a remainder of 1. Check, is your remainder smaller than your divisor? It is, so we can bring down our next number. We bring down the 8. And I know a fact, 2 times 9 equals 18. I can subtract and I get 0. Is my remainder smaller than my divisor? Yep, so I did it right. Bring down my next digit, which is a 0. How many times can 2 go into 0? Well, it can't. Now, this is where sometimes kids will stop and they won't put that 0 there. But does it make sense? Let's round this number to 80 so we can do it in our mind. 80 times 2 is 160. Oh, and this is in the thousands place, so that wouldn't make sense. So this has to be a 0, otherwise it won't work. Alright, moving over. 6 goes into 3, it doesn't, so I need to move over again. I know a fact, 6 times 6 is 36. Subtract and I get a remainder of 0. Check, is it smaller than the divisor? It is, so I'm ready to bring down my next digit, a 5. How many times does 6 go into 5? It can't, but I know that there's another digit under here, so I need to put something there so I can move on to my next digit. So I'm going to put a 0 here, and then I can bring down my 7. 6 times 6 is 36, 6 times 7 is 42, 6 times 8 is 48, 6 times 9 is 54, and 6 times 10 is 60, and that wouldn't even work, a 10 in there, so it must be 9. 6 times 9 is 54. I subtract and I get a remainder of 3, and I'm going to express it as a fraction. 3 over the divisor 6. And I know some of you are already thinking, hey, 3/6, that's the same as, and you could do that too if you wanted to. It's the same as half. Either one is correct right now. Later on I'll show you how to reduce those. 7 goes into 1. Not at all, it doesn't, but I can move over. 7 goes into 14 2 times. 7 times 2 is 14, and then we subtract and get 0. If it's smaller than the divisor, we're ready for our next number. Bring down the 7. 7 goes into 7 exactly 1 time. subtract, and we get a 0. And we're ready for our next digit. We'll bring down the 6. 7 goes into 6. Well, it doesn't. So I need to put a 0 here. And then I can call this a remainder. 6 over 7. 210 and 6/7. I'm going to just fold this down so I don't get lost. There we go. Looking at the 8. 8 goes into 4. It doesn't, so we're going to look at it as 40. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract, and it's a 0. Move it over 1, and we're going to bring down the 5. 8 goes into 5. It can't. So we need to do our next one. Bring down our 6. 7 times 8 is 56. So I can subtract. And I'll have 0 for remainder. My answer is just 507. Moving over, I've got 2 going into 1. It won't work. So then I need 2 going into 11. I know 2 times 5 is 10, and that gets me really close. I subtract and I get a remainder of 1. Check. Is it smaller than your divisor? Yep. Then you're ready for your next digit. A 0. 2 times 5 is 10. I can subtract and get a remainder of 0. See if I have another digit. I do. Bring down my last digit, a 3. 2 goes into 3 one time. And then I subtract and I get a remainder of 1. 551 and 1 over 2, or 1/2. This one, 8 goes into 2. Well, it doesn't, so I move over. 8 goes into 24 3 times. I subtract and I get 0. Check. Is it smaller than the divisor? It is, so then we move over. Bring down the 1. 8 times nothing will get us 1, so I need a 0 there. And then we'll bring down our last one. It's getting kind of spread out here. 8 times 1 will equal, I almost did 2. 8 times 2 would be 16. That's too big, so I want to go with 8 times 1. 8 times 1 is 8, and I subtract, and I get a remainder of 2. So 301 and 2 over 8, 2/8. Question at the bottom. Joe's Tire Shop put 1,212 tires on cars this week. If each week had 4 tires, how many cars did they work on that week? All right, so this is how many tires they put on cars. 1,212 this week. If each car had 4 tires, how many cars did they work on? So we'll do the same thing now that we've got it set up. Remember, this is called dividend, this is called divisor, and our answer is going to be called the quotient. We're going to work on it the same way. 4 goes into 1. Well, it doesn't. It's too small, so we'll look at it as 12. 4 times 3 is 12. And we'll subtract, and you get a 0. Bring down your next digit. 4 goes into 1. It can't. It's too small. So we'll bring down our last digit here, a 2. 4 times 3 is 12. Our remainder is 0, but here's our quotient, or our answer right there, 303 cars. Joe was busy that week working on cars. All right, thanks for working with me today.